Yes. Welcome back, folks. It's Thursday. I'm on time. I'm actually early. I set it for 14:10 today, and it's 14:08, 14:09 in overcast Montreal today. So, folks, if this is your first time here, put it in the comments. Say first time, like a virgin. Drop it in the comments. If you're a regular, hey, say hey. What's up? And appreciate you being here. We've got a special guest today. Well, I hope we have a special guest today. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm hoping that Ryan Gingras will be able to make it today. I wanted to talk about the interesting development that he's pushing. He's pushing this ball uphill, which is to get Canadian Armed Forces members who fought in the GAN, who fought in Iraq. I don't know how far it's going to go to get a Canadian Combat Action Badge. I think it's an awesome initiative, and I hope that we can get it pushed forward. Apparently, there was a rumor, or not even rumor, that this was actually a thing that was supposed to happen way back in the day with General Hillier, who was keen on getting that pushed to us, but it died a typical Canadian bureaucratic death. So, with that being said, let's get into the actual details of what's going on in veteran land. I wanted to cover off a few things with Pete Hegseth, that's for sure. I think that's on a lot of our minds. At least it's on my mind. So I want to just comment on that a little bit, and also some interesting research that I just came across in fitness and health, and of course we have our moment of share and shill, and so part of this show is to have folks on with something they want to share. So that's why I'm happy to have folks like Ryan show up and chat about what he's up to. But if you have an interesting project, you can reach out as well. Find me on my socials. My social links are here in the description. If you have a business, especially, I like highlighting veterans in business because I think that is one of our peak pinnacle activities that we can do when we're on the mend, when we're thriving. So it's a good way to, bring veterans along. And once you're healthy, fit, tracking in the right direction, then you can start putting your resources, so your cognitive resources, your physical resources, to actually building a business that can help a community out, whether it's a veteran community or not. It doesn't matter. We need more entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs solve problems. Literally everything that is being used right now on this live stream, from the camera to the mouse to had to have somebody come up with the idea to actually solve, and they did it well, and the market appreciated it. So I always like to support veterans that are getting involved in business or have a business already and just want to share it widely with the community. So please reach out to me on my socials, and hopefully we can connect there. So guys, if this is your first time here, I'm going to be talking about my book. If you're not aware, where have you been? My book is an Amazon bestseller. Please excuse my grammar. It's right here. It's called Harden the Fuck Up. And it's based off my podcast, the Hard to Kill podcast. Right now, we're seeing an uptick. Sales are starting up. So people are starting to realize, hey, this book isn't half bad. It's actually pretty good. It's a bite size. Essentially, it's a field manual for you to get back on track and to find out how to harden up. And this isn't just a bunch of workouts where you're going to just beast yourself. No. There's some workout stuff in there, but it's fitness, health, and mindset. We're covering off those topics, but it's not me. It's the experts that I've had on the podcast talking about these things. And you can get your own copy by heading to Amazon. You can also head to my website at Harden Up Book. Some of the reviews have been great so far. So let me just share one of the reviews here from Data God. 5 stars. An easy yet compelling read. Awesome. I heard about this book through the Veterans Getting Fit AF group and the 30-day Veterans Fitness Challenge. This book is easy to read and understand and is filled with highly useful information. Take control of your life, be resilient. You are a warrior before. Time to regain that mentality. I love this book so much. I bought a copy for one of my veteran brothers who will benefit greatly from it as well. Okay, so the folks that are reading and getting their hands on it are really enjoying it. And the comments that I get on socials from guys that I don't know, it's it really it's inspiring, and I'm glad it's having an impact. It doesn't have wide distribution because we're here in Canada. We're small. We need you to go do the groundwork. If you like the book, go share it. Okay. We got to have an upswell here. I want as many folks reading this book as possible so that 100,000 veterans can lose 2 million pounds. That's my ultimate goal. And this is part of that process. So if you do like it and you do appreciate the book and got some value from it, then absolutely leave a rating and a comment on Amazon. I greatly appreciate that. And there's an audiobook too. If you guys having a hard time reading, I get it. Sometimes it's hard for me to read and sit down as well. Go get yourself the audiobook. And that leads us to the Veterans Getting Fit AF community, guys. If you're not dialed into what this is the community. It's not Facebook. It's my own community. It's on the school platform. It's where I can actually start teaching again, which is great. So you can see here, I've got a bunch of courses already lined up for anybody that joins the community. Right now, we're doing the carnivore challenge. I'm down 9 pounds already. I'm loving it. We've got all kinds of folks in the community that are kicking ass and taking names. This is the community page here. I'll just scroll through it quickly. We got posts every day. We're coaching every week, and folks are really seeing a benefit here. And you get 7 days free if you want to try it out. The link is in the description. I really hope you can join. And if this isn't, you're like, even 7 days, I don't know. It's okay. I got a free community. That link is in the description as well. There's no coaching there. I'm just giving you guys information. You can do with it what you want. But in the Veterans Getting Fit AF community, if you're looking to lose weight and you're like, man, I'm fed up. Like, it's time to lose like that 20, 30 pounds. This is where you start. Okay. Get the book, come to the community, start working on yourself. And then if you need that next little boost to push you over the edge, you need some one-on-one time, then that's the perfect place to start the conversation. And me and our team of coaches here will guide you along the way and get you to your goals. Okay. So I want to chat about Mr. Hegseth. Mr. Hegseth. Actually, before that, let's look at some fitness and health stuff that's in the news. So this is interesting. Why wait? Researchers say it's fitness that matters. Okay, so what do we mean by this? So I had a quick read of this. You can just get the gist from the highlight here. Individuals classified as fit, even when overweight or obese, showed no significant increase in cardiovascular disease or all-cause mortality. That's super interesting. So if you think back, remember that sergeant that was able to smoke a pack a day and run his ass off and still, you're like, how's this guy do it? What's going on? Fitness is really being shown to be kind of like the all-cause mortality disruptor in terms of it will wipe out all your bad habits. So if you smoke, if you drink, if you're overweight, if you are fit, you're going to counteract those things. Now, it's in your best interest to not smoke, not drink, not be overweight. But if you can maintain fitness and not do all those things, even better, even better. So the summary here is quite simple. As rates of obesity are as defined by body mass index, so your BMI, and it's supposed to be below 25, continue to climb in the United States, so have efforts to lose weight, including a new era of weight loss drugs. Yet a new systematic review and meta-analysis found that cardiorespiratory fitness was a stronger predictor of both cardiovascular disease and all-cause mortality than BMI. Huh. Interesting. Okay. So I'm curious to know what they used as a metric for fitness. So here we go. The researchers reviewed 20 studies because it's a meta-analysis, don't forget. So meta-analyses, if you guys don't know what that is, you take a bunch of papers that have already been published and you study those papers And then you have to have a bunch of criteria as to what papers get accepted or not. But so this is to kind of prove out and to like create a paradigm. This is what meta-analyses are for. So the researchers reviewed 20 studies with a total sample size of 398,000. So you can see why you do it. When you have a meta-analysis, you can have a massive sample size because some studies might have 25 people, 100 people. It's a good sample size, but not quite representative of an entire population. From multiple countries, even better. About 1/3 of participants in studies were females, an increase of nearly threefold from previous studies, which is great. In the majority of studies, individuals were classified as fit if their exercise stress test score estimated, so it's right here, or directly measured VO2 max, placed them above the 20th percentile with their age group. Interesting. So VO2 max. If you guys know your VO2 max, post it in the comments. Mine is, let me just check as of today. Have it here on my watch. VO2 max. No, that's not it. Okay. 47. Excellent. So let's type in VO2 max scores and see where everybody should be. Okay. Share this tab instead. So this is off of Garmin, which is great because my watch is a Garmin as well. I'm not sponsored by Garmin, by the way, but I do love their watches. VO2 max is the number that describes your cardiorespiratory fitness. It's a single number that captures your heart, lungs, or circulatory system and muscle cells all working independently and together. And not surprisingly, your VO2 max is connected to health, performance, and longevity. Okay, so the watches can give you a rough estimate of what your VO2 max is. So ask a physiologist about VO2 max, and they will explain as the maximum volume of oxygen your body can import, transport, and utilize in a single minute during intense physical activity. If that rings a bell, then great. So therefore, having a good VO2 max is a sign that your cardiorespiratory fitness is quite high or quite good. So let's see if they have a chart here. Let's see if they have a chart. Of course they have a chart. So typical VO2 max scores for men by age group. So if you are, and I'm going to go to 40 to 49. Okay, 40 to 49. Superior is 52.5. Excellent is 46.4. So I'm 47. So I'm in between excellent and superior. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I needed that boost to my ego today. So if your VO2 max is in that range, good for you. Like that's great. You should definitely keep that up. It is a massive predictor for longevity. And this study is just showing it, right? If you want to be long-term healthy, then work on your VO2 max. For females, in the 40 to 49 range, excellent is 39.7 for excellent. And then superior is 45.3. Okay, so challenge for myself will be to get to that 52.5 range. How do you do that? Well, you're following the right channel. You're following the right channel. To improve VO2 max, you need to really ensure that you really get down and dirty into your zone 2 training. So that's your very low intensity cardiovascular running, like single modality, like no fancy like business going on, where you can have a conversation with your friend for like 30-40 minutes. That builds in a base, a really strong base. And then to really jack up the VO2 max, you got to throw in a lot of HIIT training. So you got to do those wind sprints. You got to do those suck sessions that last like just under 2 minutes where you're going all out. Those are the main ways to get your VO2 max up. So having, built this up because I did the Ironman years ago, I built my VO2 max up. I was in the good range. Like I was in this range, and granted, I did my Ironman in my 30s. So, I was 39. So I was on the good end, and I was able to build it up to the excellent side of things because my VO2 max has dropped actually slightly. I got to get back on that. It was above 48. So it was at 49. So I've dropped a little bit just because I haven't been doing a lot of VO2 max style training, but it takes a while to build this up. So I would recommend getting on that and making a change this year to your VO2 max and start tracking it. So back to the study. Obesity is associated with a series of health conditions, and weight loss has been seen as a way to reduce the impact of those conditions. But weight loss is challenging, and failing to keep weight off can bring other risks. Interesting. So this is from one of the co-authors. Most people who lose weight regain it. Correct. Actually, it's like 98%, dude. It's crazy. Repetitive cycles of losing and gaining weight, yo-yo dieting, is associated with numerous health risks comparable with those to those of obesity itself. Improving cardiorespiratory fitness may help avoid the adverse health effects associated with chronic yo-yo dieting. Yeah, absolutely. Like, so there's two things here, though. The yo-yo dieting, this is something that we challenge in the Beast Body Blueprint program here. We give you the tools so that you don't end up yo-yoing. Because the fundamental reason why you yo-yo is that you have a broken paradigm for weight loss, and you get success where you lose weight, but then you have zero idea, or the struggle is too real to manage that program, that weight loss nutrition program, whatever you want to call it, long term. And so therefore it's completely useless, because what's the point of doing something that's just going to make you worse off? And when you yo-yo, you typically add more weight than when you started. And there's a whole hormonal cascade is the reason why. But these are the things we go over in the community that, like, well, stop yo-yo dieting, but it's not that simple. You have to understand why you would yo-yo diet, and then establish the new fundamental base habits that are going to prevent you from doing it. So this is a big recurring theme, right? Over the last 50 years, yo-yo dieting became a thing. Back in the day, that was not a thing. Like before 1970, before 19s, people didn't yo-yo diet because there's no such thing as dieting, really. Dieting only really came about in like the 1970s. Whole other discussion. But approximately 20% of adults meet the physical activity guidelines set by the U.S. Department of Health and Services. So what that means, they have it here. Current guidelines recommend adults perform a minimum of 150 minutes per week of moderate to intense physical activity, or 75 minutes of vigorous activity. Yeah, I talk about this all the time. You need to essentially do 20 minutes of activity a day. And that means if you do that, you're in the top 20% of humanity, like in North America. Like, good for you. It's 20 minutes, and it's not vigorous. It's going for a walk, gardening, playing with your kids, like guns, or, whatever, like go hiking in the woods. It doesn't have to be a CrossFit workout. You don't have to be like sucking gums at the end of it. That's the important part you have to understand. And if you can get that established as one of your core habits, then you're set for life. So with that being said, there's a few things. So if we just want to summarize here, get some physical activity in, get some new habits and some new nutritional habits so that you don't yo-yo diet, but then start building up your VO2 max with some zone 2 training, and then about 75 minutes of vigorous physical activity, which includes weight training. You will build up your VO2 max, and then find a way to measure it. Okay. So you can do it old school. You can do like a mile run or 1.5 mile run, and calculate it that way, or just use one of these fancy devices, use a chest strap as well, get more accurate data and see what your baseline is. And then keep on building up from there. So we haven't even talked about muscle strength, but muscle strength and VO2 max are the two biggest predictors of long-term health that you could possibly imagine. And you can narrow that down even further and look at grip strength as a proxy for overall strength. Guys that have a really strong grip, and girls too, if you have really strong grip strength, are the most long-lived people in the world. And the theory is that because they have strong grip, it implies they're very strong because they've maintained muscle mass over their lives. So they live into their 90s, hundreds, and go even deeper into that, into like 110 years old. They typically all have really strong grip. So like, think of farmers, think anybody that had to like use their grip strength regularly. They typically have much more muscle mass, and they maintain it. And that also implies that you've consciously made a decision to stay fit and healthy. So keep that in mind. Keep on adding muscle mass. Make sure to resistance train, and make sure to do a lot of zone 2 training and get your daily activity in. If you do that, you'll be barring getting hit by a bus, right? Or some other unforeseen illness, you'll be good to go for the rest of your life. You don't even have to do a fancy program. I mean, you're basically putting me out of business. And I hope to go out of business and not have to train anybody ever. Like, that's the ultimate goal. And I'll just like do podcasts and like, write books. So put me out of business. Go walk. Go do physical, like PT on your own time. Go lift a heavy barbell. Just go do it. I mean, if you need help though, that's what I'm here for. Until we reach that like perfect nirvana state of everybody's healthy, I'll still have a job. Let's go in the comments here. SCK Reptiles Educational Center. Oh, cool. What? Hey, Dave. Hey, wow, cool. Hey, SCK Reptiles Educate. Where are you guys? If you're in Montreal, no, it's in English. You not from Montreal, but I'll bring my kids. I love going to museums. I'm a science teacher, if you didn't know that. So I love doing that kind of stuff. Sanico, my diet consists of coffee and cigs. Nice. Any Zin thrown in there? I had a Zin so I used to chew like when I was deployed. I used to Red Man chew all the time, and I smoke cigarettes too. A lot of cigars. My tobacco usage was through the roof. Came home, chew a little bit. I hadn't really had any. I haven't really tried Zin. I had Zin for the first time in Atlanta. Actually, at my first Zin, I had with Dallas Alexander, believe it or not. It's pretty cool. He's like, here, try it. I was like, what is this? He's like, it's Zin. I'm like, oh, I've heard about this. Isn't it banned in Canada? He's like, yeah, have some. So I was like, man, not bad. Then I had one when I came home, and I got the worst case of hiccups I've ever had in my life. I don't know what that was. I was like, I had to pull over. I was driving. I had to pull over and be like, what is going on with my body? I subsequently had some more, and I'm doing okay. So I don't know. It's my body giving up on me. But coffee and cigs, yeah, man. Uppers, and if you have too many cigs, downers. Yeah, there's nothing better for you, right? Nothing better for you. You're probably pretty thin, I'm going to assume. All right, reptile education. You're in St. Catharines. Oh, okay, cool. I don't usually make it down there, but I hope you guys are doing well. Very cool. I went to the science center in San Francisco years ago before I even have kids, and I was like, oh my god, this is insane. I love going to those things. Here we have a few in Montreal. We have the not the Arboretum. That was the Eco Center. What's it called? I always forget what it's called. Anyways, it's in the old Olympic Village. It's really cool. Been closed for a little while, so we haven't been able to take care. They have all the different ecosystems there. I love that thing. Back to Sanico. I don't yet, but I also don't fly on planes. No, especially recently. Okay, cool. And even though he wants to taste. Okay, well, Sanico, you're in the right spot, man. Come join the community. We'll get that fat off of you, man. There's no reason to suffer inside. And 6'1", 236 isn't that bad. I mean, I'm 6'4". I was at 230 at my heaviest. Now I'm down to 220. Got to be 208 for my comp coming up in April. So we can get you there. We can get you there. We got a free course here. Look at this. Look at this. We're getting we're going into the weeds here. Here, share this tab instead. Classroom. Lose 2 pounds in 2 weeks. It's actually, you could probably lose 5 pounds in 2 weeks. I'm pretty confident. So yeah, come join the community. Love to have you. What else we got here? Yukon Steph. Hey, Yukon Steph. I'm good with the Canadian action bad. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know if we're actually going to be able to get Ryan in here today. Unfortunately, I think something has come up. Or there's a tech issue. But in our comms channel, I don't see anything. So we may have to just riff on this, but that's okay. I still got to talk about Pete Hegseth. Oh, cool. Reptile Center, 93 to, wow. Okay. You got some long legs in the calf. 93. Whoa. All right. Before my time. And Sanico, with a better diet, it's easy to lose 20 pounds and a bit more with training. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you've heard abs are made in the kitchen. That's true. 80% of your weight loss progress comes from just changing your habits. And then when you get to a certain plateau, you usually need to up the energy expenditure. However, if you don't want to constantly be starving, it's a fine balance. Like, I need to lose weight, and I know that if I start really pushing the cardio, like if I start running more, yeah, there's not enough food on in Costco to fill me. So I have to plan, okay, and when am I going to do this? I can only do it for so long because eventually it just gets really brutal. So I can do it for about a month. So I can do a month at a time, then I have to refeed and et cetera, et cetera. All things we can discuss later. And you concept, I do not train. I just do chores and live. I do not consciously live healthy. I just do as I do. You don't need to apologize for that, Yukon Steph. You don't need to apologize for that. Yeah, that's literally how everybody was up until like the 70s. The weird thing is we do more in terms of things. We're constantly like, moms didn't have workout groups with their like babies and strollers in the 40s, 50s. That was, moms were thin, dads were thin. Everybody was generally thin. What changed? Like, moms weren't going for runs. They weren't going to CrossFit classes. They weren't doing all that stuff. Well, what changed? So my take, and a lot of other people's take, is our food. Our food completely changed. We've been stuffing our faces with poison, essentially. And we're starting to see, well, you know what, guys? Because my guest isn't here, we're going to get into it. So did you guys see this? Red food dye has been removed, according to the FDA. And, oh, that's Forbes. Sorry, I can't use Forbes. I can't use Forbes because there's a paywall. Okay, but I'm pretty sure I can use, yes, I can. Okay, so FDA bans red number 3 artificial coloring used in beverages, candy, and other foods. Evidence shows that the synthetic dye can cause cancer in lab animals. Yeah, there's a lot of research actually that it's not new. Okay, it's been banned in cosmetics for a while. Europe has just a full-on ban. The reason why you can't use it is because there's also issues with respects to kids and the fact that it alters behavior. It's neurotoxic. There's a lot of stuff about these food dyes that have been known for a long time, but have just been ubiquitous in our food supply. So I think this is just one of the dominoes to fall when it comes to seeing just an improvement overall of our general health, because we're not taking it anymore. And all it took was a guy like Robert Kennedy getting a position in the Trump administration for them to actually move on this. Because if you're not going to push them, they're not going to change. I'm assuming there's a monetary incentive to using this dye. It's probably cheaper than using like beet juice extract or whatever. And the difference here in the States and Canada, I'm pretty sure, you'd have to fact check me on this, doesn't use this red dye number 3. I'm pretty sure it's banned in our food here as well. Same with the yellow dye, has been banned. It doesn't mean that they're still good for you, but they seem to be like a little bit better. Ultimately, the stuff that's got all this dye in it is usually not the best quality food. It's like Gatorades, candies, frosting, the things that you probably shouldn't be eating anyways. It's probably full of sugar. And now you're removing this dye is probably just one step closer. Now, how many other dominoes are going to fall? We'll see. But I think this is a step in the right direction. And finally, I think we're going to start seeing some changes to our food supply, which has essentially been providing us really poor nutrition over the last 40 years. Even though we want to eat better and be healthier, there's too many financial incentives to us being sick that causes this kind of vicious feedback loop. So that's why you guys are here. I hope to learn a little bit more. So that was my little tangent for today. Let's get into Pete Hegseth. And the reason why I want to bring up Pete Hegseth, if you're not following, he's the nominee for the defense secretary in the U.S. And I only kind of really only tuned into like what he's talking about because he was on the Sean Ryan show right before he got the nomination for the Secretary of Defense position. And excuse me, some of the things that he's saying resonated with me. And he's got a very strong push for accountability. So I like that because that's ultimately what I've been seeking since day one. Accountability. Where's the accountability for the failures in Afghanistan? Where's the accountability been for the essentially complete and utter breakdown of the standards within the Canadian Armed Forces, which include health, which includes morale, mental health? Like, we just let it go by the wayside. Like, who's responsible? Who's going to be held accountable for these failures? he's saying the right things, in my opinion. And so I'm just going to share some things here with some comments. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it as well. So this is just to give credit, Vigilant Fox. So let's expand this here and let's listen to what he has to say.
Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength. And in pursuing these America First national security goals, will remain patriotically apolitical and stridently constitutional. Unlike the current administration, politics should play no part in military matters. We are not Republicans. We are not Democrats. We are American warriors.
So just that alone, we need more of that here. It's not about blue, red, left, right in the military. And, a reptile center, right? You joined in 93. I don't know. I joined in 2001. There was the point of the military is that it's apolitical. You're in there. You're there to fight for Canada. That's it. I don't give a shit what your political leanings are. I don't care. We have one team, one mission, but now all this political stuff has just tainted our system. It's tainted the veteran community. It's ugly, right? I don't like it. And if this is a sign of things to come, I'm all for it. Man, we have one mission. If you don't like it, don't join up. But I don't care what side you're on. Like, we're in a free country. You can have opinion on whatever you want. But when you're in the military, you're here to do one thing, and that's fight the good fight for the country. And I hope that's going to be represented here in Canada eventually too.
Our standards will be high and they will be equal, not equitable. That's a very different word.
Oof. That's another big one too. Okay, so my stance for ever, actually. So since I joined, I never liked the fact that women had a different standard than men. And you may disagree with me on that, but when we're doing the job, the standard should be the standard. Because the job is not forgiving. If you're deployed to a combat zone, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. All that matters is that you have to do the exact same thing as everybody else. So to lower this standard to be equitable and not be equal, to me is eroding the combat capability of the force. So much like Hegseth, I totally feel that women should be involved in combat roles. However, there should be the realization that some combat roles are going to be very hard for women to get in. If they can meet the standard, great. But if not, it's going to be very hard for them to meet the standard. So deploy them where they can actually be of greater benefit. And this has historically been done. It's nothing new. It's just in the current climate, since roughly like the 2000s, it's been a push by political movements to get women into the same positions, where I don't think that actually improves combat effectiveness. So I'd love to hear what your comments are on that. And the difference between equity and equality, very important distinction as well. And I want to be clear, I don't think there should be any difference in terms of PT standard for age either. You're 55 years old, you should be able to do the same thing as a 20-year-old. War is war, man. You're doing the same job. If you're deployed, you're doing the same thing as the 20-year-old. So why should you have a lower standard? And if you can't make that standard, find another job that doesn't require that PT standard. That's my opinion. That's why, soldiering and like grunt work is a young man's game. I couldn't do it now. I'm in my 40s. So I wouldn't even attempt. I'm all busted up. So I wouldn't even attempt. So that being said, we got to focus on equality, not equity. And I like what you had to say there.
We need to make sure every warrior is fully qualified on their assigned weapon system. Every pilot's fully qualified and current on the aircraft they are flying. And every general or flag officer is selected for leadership or promotion purely based on performance, readiness, and merit. Leaders at all levels will be held accountable, and warfighting and lethality and the readiness of the troops and their families will be our only focus. This has been my focus ever since I first put on the uniform as a young Army ROTC cadet at Princeton University in 2001. I joined the military because I love my country and felt an obligation to defend it. I served with incredible Americans in Guantanamo Bay, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and on the streets of Washington, D.C., many of which are with me here today. This includes enlisted soldiers I helped become American citizens, and Muslim allies I helped immigrate from Iraq and Afghanistan. Because when I took off the uniform, my mission never stopped.
Like we had to say there too. I think we're seeing now one of the repercussions of 20 years of war, and I don't think the political class truly understands the gravity or the movement that is taking place, especially in the U.S. 20 years of war that was instigated by the U.S. or let's say the events of 9/11, but propagated for 20 years by the U.S. We were obviously a part of that war machine, and the amount of individuals that went through the grinder of the GWOT now have a perspective that I don't think the political class really has understood, because they kind of swept us under the rug. They don't want us to be Secretary of Defense. They don't want us to be Minister of Defense, although we've had a Minister of Defense, Harjit Sajjan, that fought in Afghanistan. However, his reputation has been tarnished tremendously. But I think there's a new generation that's coming up that's going to be a lot more politically active. They're going to be doing a lot more for the benefit of the country. And my stance is very much on hey, we got to do this together. And at the end of the day, we're all Canadian. And your political ideology, my political ideology, has to take a back seat to what's good for the country. And there's a principled stance is a hard one for a lot of people to get their heads around, because a lot of times they want you to take an ideological stance that is either left or right. But if you do things virtuously and your goal is to do things for the right reasons, then I don't think you'd be faulted for that. And I'm curious to see how Hegseth actually manages this. I'm going to show you some more videos here. But what he said about, bringing Muslims over from Iraq, Afghanistan, like a lot of people, I just got called a right-wing fucking Nazi, whatever, on Twitter, because if you take a stance on a certain aspect, people want to put you in a box, right? I had the honor of helping out 2 Afghan families come here. What would somebody who's like very much on the left side of this, the political spectrum, say to that if they're calling me right-wing? Like, I'm helping out these individuals that are supposed to be like your chosen people, right? Because you want to have as many immigrants here as possible, because that seems to be like what your side is pushing. But then how do you put me in a box because you're trying to call me a racist? Well, what I'm doing is clearly not a racist thing. So then it's because we've siloed ourselves. And I hope Hegseth is going to have a really important part in making sure that the military doesn't silo itself and can be a force for good. And I think this will benefit the veteran population. Curious to know what you guys think.
Now, it is true and has been acknowledged that I don't have a similar biography to defense secretaries of the last 30 years. But as President Trump also told me, we've repeatedly placed people atop the Pentagon with supposedly the right credentials, whether they are retired generals, academics, or defense contractor executives. And where has it gotten us? He believes, and I humbly agree, that it's time to give someone with dust on his boots the helm.
I like that.
A change agent, someone with no vested interest in certain companies or specific programs or approved narratives. My only special interest is the warfighter.
I love that he's using the term warfighter.
And if called upon, winning wars by ensuring our warriors never enter a fair fight.
Hells yeah.
We let them win and we bring them home. Like many of my generation, I've been there. I've led troops in combat. I've been on patrol for days. I've pulled the trigger down range, heard bullets whiz by, flex-cuffed insurgents, called in close air support, led medevacs, dodged IEDs, pulled out dead bodies, and knelt before a battlefield cross. This is not academic for me. This is my life. I led then, and I will lead now. Ask anyone who's ever worked for me or with me. I know what I don't know. my success as a leader, and I very much look forward to discussing my organization's successes at Vets for Freedom and Concerned Veterans for America.
American Vets for Freedom. Any affiliation to this one?
But my success as a leader has always been setting a clear vision, hiring people smarter and more capable than me, empowering them to succeed, holding everyone accountable, and driving toward clear metrics. Build the plan, work the plan, and then work harder than everyone else around you. I've sworn an oath to the Constitution before, and if confirmed, I will proudly do it again. This time, for the most important deployment of my life. I pledge to be a faithful partner to this committee, taking input and respecting oversight. We share the same goals: a ready, lethal military, the health and well-being of our troops, and a strong and secure America. Thank you for the time.
Very well said. Very well said. I mean, I think it's getting some people's panties in a bunch, because the idea that we're going to have like an equal a military, they're going to have a military based on equality and focused on war fighting, blows up some of the plans to have these politically motivated initiatives in there. But I think what he's saying is just bang on. I don't think there's anything left or right about it, right? I think it's pretty right down the middle. The military is here to be lethal and win wars. What a concept. Oh my God. Wait, say that again. We're here just to win wars. Yeah, we're here just to win wars. So let's get into the comments. You guys have been throwing down the comments, which is awesome. So let's go back to my initial statements. Okay. Oh man, we're really good. Oh, thanks guys. Appreciate that. Okay. Oh, yeah, red dye. We're back to red dye. Okay. Thanks for updating me. The red dye is only in junk food, soda pop, and fake juices. Yeah. Okay. Anita was our defense. Yes, she was. Brian Fraser. Pete has taken a beating that last couple of days. Everything from the past was brought up, good, bad, and yeah. I mean, I don't know enough about Pete Hegseth, but I mean, these things must be brutal, right? Like they're gonna pull everything from your life. Like you really have to have a thick skin. I don't know if granted, we don't have this here, right? We don't have the same kind of process, because the cool thing about the US is that they can just pull somebody as, like in this case here, Pete Hegseth is not an elected member of Congress or the Senate. He's just, well, I don't call him a troop, but I mean, clearly he's got a lot of experience. I think he's a member of the National Guard still. And Trump's like, hey, I want you to be Secretary of Defense. So they have to have a nomination hearing. So it's public. I think that's a cool system. We don't have that here. You have to be elected to be a minister, which I think holds us back. I'll be honest, because let's say any one of you that's listening right now, maybe you guys are like war gods and like very well read and would be a great minister of defense. You can't unless you win a riding, which costs a shit ton of money. You got to be in politics for a while. Like it's a tall order. So until we become a republic, that's not going to happen. Pete has a ton of veteran support. Indeed. Friend of the podcast, Stu Scheller was down there, and he's been all for accountability for a while. So it was really cool to see as well. Yeah, definitely. I can't see how this doesn't bleed over into Canada. Yeah, lower standards never made anything better. You're right. Absolutely. And great point here. Reptile Education Center. We stand up to protect and serve Canada. And actually, you know, I'll push back on you on that. We don't actually make that oath. We make it to the king or the queen. I'm kind of not okay with that anymore, but that's a whole other podcast that I'm just not willing to do. But I agree that the spirit is that we're protecting Canada, right? Not politicians, not the Prime Minister of Canada. It's Canada, legal immigrants, and Canadian citizens is who Canada is. Yeah. Yeah. And okay, So let's get back. I like this one here. Yeah, probably they hammered him for his life choices and the entire group judging him do the same thing. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of something you grew up with, right? You know, don't throw stones in glass houses. Yeah, I mean, these politicians that can sit up there and say, "Hey, what about this transgression?" And like, I don't know where this whole drinking at work thing came from. I don't know. I don't know enough about the story, but it just seems like they're grasping at straws. And to say like, "Oh, don't drink at work," when like, I think it's pretty clear that a lot of these folks drink at work. I don't know. I don't know enough about American politics, but it just seems a bit hypocritical. But that's politics, right? Yukon Steph. Yeah, with respect to women in combat roles, depends on the MOC, to be fair. Yeah, absolutely. You know, some MOCs that don't like, they don't, and that's, I think that's a uniquely Canadian thing too. We have a universality of service and one PT test for everything. Well, that doesn't make any sense. The Americans have the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, and then they have all the different other stuff. They all have their own PT tests because they're like, yeah, why would I have the Air Force guy do the Army PT test? He's not going to do the same job. Doesn't make any sense. Of course, it doesn't make any sense. But granted, we have a much smaller military. We have very limited resources. But, you know, if you were to ask me, we should definitely have 3 different PT tests for the 3 different branches. And then you subdivide. And there's obviously one for CANSOF. You know, there's one for JTF. Awesome. But you should not have just one standard PT test for everybody in the CAF. That doesn't make any sense to me. So when I'm Minister of National Defense, I'll make that change. Or you know what? Just if you guys got connections, just put the word into Pierre. Like, hey, you know all those dollars you send to consultants? I'm cheap, man. $1 million contract. I'll actually do the work. I'll talk about it on the podcast. I'll be very transparent. But I'll build the PT tests and I'll run them across Canada. Does that sound fair? All right. I think we got a plan. Let's make it happen. And let's see. We got some more comments here. Yukon said, does the nurse need to have the same physical standards as CLJTF? No. Mental health, yes, for certain deployments, for other stuff. No. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we need to have a lot more nuance is essentially, I think what you're saying. And that's what I'm getting at as well. We need to have more nuance and we need to make sure that folks are put in positions that they're expected to be successful at. That's one thing that drives me crazy is that there's certain standards and there's certain emphasis on folks being put in positions that are not well suited for them and their abilities. I would much rather have a dude who's maybe not as physically adept at doing the infantry things. Because don't get me wrong, a lot of guys fail. Don't forget, it's hard. They just don't have the physical fortitude to get through like a basic infantry course. Sucks. Well, don't drum them out. Like there's other stuff that is available. Maybe they're much better at another MOC, another trade. Who knows? Put them in that role. Don't just out of hand say, you're not good for the infantry. Like, so long, sucker. You know, make sure you do the vetting process before they get to that. Anyways, that's my rant for the day on that. I have another few posts here with Pete. I don't know if I'll go into them, but essentially this one's a short one. He did mention that he would reinstate all those that were kicked out for COVID mandates.
Patriots. How many other people of conscience? We haven't even talked about COVID and the tens of thousands of service members who were kicked out because of an experimental vaccine. In President Trump's Defense Department, they will be apologized to. They will be reinstituted with pay and rank. Things like focusing on extremism, Senator, have created a climate inside our ranks that feel political when it hasn't ever been political. Those are the types of things that are going to change. And Senator Sullivan, you mentioned that study. After a whole study was held, extremism working group study, 100 extremists were identified in the ranks of 3 million. And most of those were gang related. So it was a made up boogeyman to begin with.
I would love to get my hands on that study and see what the comparables are here to Canada, because the extremism stuff, ideologically motivated violent extremists, is something that got pinned onto Afghan veterans. And then it started infiltrating into the CAF. We've seen the posts. We've seen the research. That we've seen the polls that have been sent out. He's right. It's a boogeyman that doesn't exist. In the States, they had 100 identified extremists out of 3 million. Oh my God. That's what 0.0003%, which is you don't move on anything that has that low of a percentage within your community. Like it means it's not an event. In Canada, it would be like, I guess, same representation, of the Canadian Armed Forces is like quote unquote extremist. Well, yeah, we're human beings. There's going to be like quote unquote extremists, but there's no reason to focus on it. I remember joining. I remember we all thought we were hardcore, so we all like got like we didn't bick our heads, but we went like number one all the way around, and we got fucking torched. They're like, we don't have any skinheads here. So we had to like fade it on the sides or go or bick it. They like staff was pissed. I was like, oh, why? They're like, no. Like, we're not going to be seen as like right wing, like neo-Nazi, like assholes. Like, you got to get a proper haircut. I was like, oh, okay. I just thought it was cool. Like, I didn't even think about that. Like the fact that it was even considered that we'd be like violent extremists is laughable. We fought extremists for 20 years, man. So this all came out of the United States too. I know for a fact all of this IMVE stuff came out of the United States. I like the fact that he's pushing back on the COVID thing. We had a really depressing conversation on the podcast with Catherine. That would have been in October when it got published, about who can actually reinstate folks that were kicked out here in Canada. And the answer is nobody. I mean, I think Pierre Poilievre is talking about it, but nobody has the authority. So there has to be some sort of new legislation brought in. And so I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not like in the States where the president can essentially say like, yeah, you're back in, you get all your pay, enjoy. I don't think we can do that here. At least that's from Catherine's perspective. And I have to take her word on it that it's going to take a big push for folks to get reinstated, or at a bare minimum, get their back pay, right? For like what he said. There's no reason why these folks should have been kicked out. And it caused a real crisis of conscience and a moral quandary within our militaries. This wrong has to be righted. So I'm excited to see what happens here in Canada and what the American influence has here with just that alone. Love it. Marvin, welcome to the show. I haven't seen you before, but how is Jeff feeling these days? Is he up for the upcoming federal election? Who's Jeff, man? Are we talking JT? Who's Jeff? I don't know who Jeff is. So, and then lastly, I guess with this all being about the combat action badge, there's nothing formal that I can find in terms of like legislation. It's definitely up to Ryan to fill us in. I'm just doing a quick search here and to see if there's any Canadian Forces. Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. Hey, look at this. So I didn't know this existed. I should have done better research. So it's actually recent, as of a few days, in the Ottawa Citizen. So that's wicked, with Dave Pugliese, who's the OG. Like, he's not a podcaster, but he's the OG. Like, there's some OG critics of the Canadian Armed Forces. Like, I'm brand new at this. Like, I'm not even wet behind the ears. I don't even know what you call it, but they've been writing articles for decades, right? So newly declassified records show the behind the scenes debate on whether to move forward on the award and why it was canceled. So this goes to speak to what Hegseth was talking about a little bit. The warfighter. We need to be called the warfighter. That's what we did. Soldiers are soldiers, but the classifying the term warfighter is important because it gives those that were actually doing the war fighting a little bit more recognition. The support is there. That we can't warfight without the support. That's not what we're saying. But we had a typical Canadian response to, we're going to like highlight the individuals who were literally in the fight, having bullets whizzing over their head and getting involved in ticks and dodging IEDs, with a combat action badge. It's just a little token of appreciation. Like, hey, you guys are mixing it up. So you guys get a little bit more recognition on your DEUs. Nothing wrong with that. The Americans that got the CAB, I was up for a CAB, and obviously, because I worked with the Americans, chain of command shot that down. They're like, no, you're not giving it. And the Americans went up to me like, dude, why can't you wear a CAB? Like, it's not like you go to like wear it on your combats. It's like, it's just, we want to recognize you. Do whatever you want with it after. I don't give a shit. It's like, you couldn't even get the formal recognition. It's like, yeah, just the way we are. They're like, that's stupid. So even the Americans are perplexed at how we don't recognize guys. Now, there's abuses that I heard of, that I read about back in the day, that before some, Americans, before they would go home, if they were deployed into like Afghanistan or whatever, and they didn't get any like formal action, like there was no bullets whizzing over their head and they didn't have to return fire. I can't remember the exact criteria for the CAB, but they were like dropping grenades outside of their vehicles and then go, oh, contact, and then like opening up into the desert to be like, yeah, we need to get our CABs now. I think because it's tied to their promotion as well and their careers. But we're not like that. I mean, there might be some abuse, but to not do something because of the fear of abuse of it is such a typical response. Let's see what the article says, and let's see if I'm right about that. Canadian military leaders canceled a proposed combat action badge in 2008. Oh, wow. Because they were worried soldiers in Afghanistan would risk their lives to attain the coveted honor. Oh, no. Really? Like, who said that? In addition, there were concerns that Navy and Air Force personnel would find it difficult to qualify as a combat action badge or CAB favored those involved in ground fighting. Yes, that's literally the point. Like, the infantry is the queen of battle. So sorry, folks, if you're not infantry, listen, we're the queen of battle. We're the ones that are on the ground. It sucks. The job sucks. Everything else supports that. That's how it is. Now, the nature of warfare is probably changing a little bit. We got a lot of drone stuff going on, cyber. Yes, I agree. But if you want to physically hold somewhere, there has to be a physical human being to be there. That's the infantry. We don't need to be smart. We just need to be rugged enough and able to shoot a gun and get to our position fast enough and hopefully not die in the process. That's it. That's our job. Everything else is to support. It gets us there, make sure we have everything, make sure we have fire support. That's it. So yeah, if you want to sit in a hole or sit in a building and get mortared all day, then yeah, I think you deserve the CAB. Everybody else gets the same medal. So it doesn't matter if you sat in the office or you actually went on a deployment on the ground, you got the exact same thing. Nah, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. So the CAB has been proposed in 2006 by then Chief of Defense Staff, Uncle Rick, and was long awaited by those troops who have been involved in intense fighting in Afghanistan. Yeah. Okay. Agreed. But the award was canceled 2 years later with little explanation. Now, newly declassified records released under the Access to Information Act outlined the behind-the-scenes debate on whether to move forward on the award and why it was canceled. Combat action, according to the records, was defined as a point where an individual was in close proximity to or directly targeted by the enemy and their personal safety was at high risk. 3 badges were to be developed, each designating a level of action or danger. Okay. So that's cool. But then the objections from various quarters. Okay. Some military leaders worried the badge was divisive. It's not divisive. It's helping morale. Hey, the guys that are doing all the dirty fighting, you should keep them happy. You know, they want a little thing for their DEUs. Let's reward. We don't get medals in general. So could you at least, like, it's not a medal, it's an award, right? It'd be like a little pin, I imagine, just like the American one. I know this. Oh my God. So concerns were raised that some troops would risk their lives to be awarded the top level of the CAB. The current approach is temptation to disregard ROE and fire discipline in order to claim a gold CAB. Military leaders were warned. Ugh. What about Canadian warfighters is not clear. We're not the gung-ho Rambos. We're the calm, professional warfighters. Always have been, and will beat you with a fucking spiked bat if we have to. Not because we want to, because we have to. Like 100+ years of Canadian warfare. Hasn't that been made clear? That's so frustrating. They're just worried that, oh, it might risk it. We already are risking our lives, man. We could get vaporized in a second. Well, it could have been in Afghanistan. Playing whack-a-mole over there for a decade. That's so frustrating. So it's DHH, Department of National Defense Director of History and Heritage, or DHH, summed up the various views in August 20. So don't forget, DHH, as far as I can tell, is not run by military folks. I don't know why our system is governed by these folks. It should just be the military doing it. DHH didn't believe the combat badge was a good award for the Canadian Forces. It does not increase military effectiveness. In the briefing noted, in fact, it tempts CF personnel to act counter to the best interest of deployed force. Man, there better be some hard pipe hitters on that DHH panel to be able to make a statement like that. Does not increase military effectiveness. No, it's not for military effectiveness. It's for morale long term. I don't know, man. If any of you guys were in Afghanistan or even like fought in, let's say, Medak Pocket, or fought in Syria or Iraq over the last 20 years, like, were you thinking about your medals? I wasn't like, oh, I can't wait to get a medal for this. I wasn't even thinking about pay. I think most of us, it's very hard to motivate somebody to go do something for pay. You have to really believe in it, or for a medal. Like, my medals are in a box. I don't even have them on display. Like, my kids find them. Like, where are these? My medals. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, aren't they way off on this? So, that's it. That's where we're at here in Canada. So I'm happy that Ryan is pushing this ball forward. Hopefully, maybe we can get him on in a week or two. We got other folks coming on the podcast, going to be sharing their stories as well. We got some firefighters and police officers coming on talking about fitness. Can't wait for that. Looking to get Tim Turner and talk about Operation Pegasus Jump as well on here. So we got a lot coming down the pipe on the live broadcast, folks. So thanks for tuning in. We got 154 folks. That's great. We're back on schedule. This is our second week since the break. So stay tuned for more. Love to know your thoughts here in the comments. If you're watching the replay, should we have a combat action badge here? And should the military be more focused on war fighting and making sure that we have the most lethal warfighting forces on the planet to A, deter anybody that would want to step on our dicks, and B, if we have to get into a hot war, be the most lethal, badass motherfuckers on the planet that can actually beat back an armed aggressor. What are your thoughts on that? Love to hear it in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget, if you want to support the podcast, you can send a super chat. If not, you can go become a member. Low fee memberships here really help keep the lights on. Don't forget, everything here comes at a price. And as a Canadian, everything just keeps on getting more expensive. So if you want to donate a few shekels to the cause, by all means, I'd really appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys tuning in and spending a Thursday afternoon with me. Let's just get into the comments before we wrap things up. Odious, all right, you're here. Wicked. RP, Jess La Rochelle. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I had Giselle on last year talking about this very topic. The fact that we don't have a VC winner from Afghanistan doesn't sit well with me. I think the Aussies just awarded theirs. The British have theirs. And, the Americans have their Medal of Honor winners for both Iraq and Afghanistan. But typical Canada, just can't get behind the fact that there should be a VC winner here for Afghanistan. And Jess La Rochelle, in my opinion, fits the criteria perfectly. And it's just unfortunate that, A, we weren't able to get it to him before he passed away. B, the military in Canada really needs a win right now. And awarding medals like this is not just for the individual, it's for the country as a whole, to improve morale. And we can't really bring ourselves to muster the courage to be able to actually do this, which says a lot about who we are. And I think it's time for a change. I'm optimistic. I think things are about to change. So thanks, Reptiles Education Center. I was there. I wasn't thinking about money or medals. Okay, right on. I was thinking about my team guys getting the job done and getting the hell home. Yeah, I know. I mean, so like I'll be honest, my medals are more of a nostalgic thing for my kids and my grandkids. I one of my one of my proudest displays in my house are my grandfather's medals with his pre-deployment picture looking like, I think he was 17, and the picture of him like getting married in his I don't know what, I guess they called it the EUs back in the day, but to my grandmother before he deployed to the UK, eventually going to Sicily. And I have all his medals. My kids ask me about it because that's their great grandfather. And I see it as just a way to carry on the proud heritage of being warfighters in my family. So my medals will serve as that. And so the CAB, anything that I would have gotten would have just been another story, right? I don't wear them every day. Like I wear them occasionally on Remembrance Day. That's it. So that being said, I think we need to just recognize the efforts that folks have put in for the country. It's not a hard concept. And yes, we need to distinguish those that do better than others or do more than others. That is an okay thing to say. Not everybody has to be like equal. Not everybody has to have universality as service clause stamped on everything. It's ironic that in the political climate and the way the CAF is being run now, they want to have everybody as a beautiful snowflake. You can have purple hair. You can fly whatever flag you want. However, the actual war fighters that did the war fighting want a little pin or a badge. No. We can't have that kind of diversity here. We can't have you different from everybody else. It's so mind-bogglingly hypocritical that it's laughable. So you made a great point there. Thanks for that. Steph. Yeah, it could be a coin. I disagree though, because I think that has been our Canadian cop-out for far too long. We always make fun of the Americans for having like a rack of like medals, but at least they recognize their troops. And we don't. We just don't. And it's something that even the British do way more recognition than us. So, a coin, I don't think cuts it. I've got enough coins. What am I going to do? Like, they just sit in a box somewhere. Again, I'm not going to pull out my coins and be like, Sonny, I got this coin for Polish and Braswell in leadership lines in Petawawa, and I'm not going to do that. So, it would just cheapen my experience. But I appreciate you making a suggestion. I agree. Anything at this point would be better than nothing. All I was thinking about is getting clean and getting sand in my hair. Yeah. Got dirty over there. I know. That is gross. And the poo dust and everything was gross. My participation ribbons, coins, awards, shoebox somewhere. Yeah, I agree. And I'm glad you brought that up, Steph. Just to kind of, wrap things up with a nice little bow. Pretty much everybody, and you're voicing it too. Like we don't do everything. We didn't serve for tea and medals, right? Like the medal is just the sign that the institution has said, yeah, thanks. That was rough. You get this pinned on your chest in front of everybody. Like there's supposed to be a ceremony around it because there's a psychological closure to whatever that was, whether it's for bravery, whether it's just for the mission, whether it's for anything. We've gotten to this really dirty habit, especially in Canada, of awarding medals in private. I know my CD was just like done in the office. Guys have gotten other medals just in the mail. That should not be allowed, in my opinion. A medal needs to be done on parade or in public because you're honoring and you're recognizing the service and the actions of that individual, because the entire military is based on collectiveness. But you're saying, no, this individual did something that deserves recognition. And I remember distinctly being on PLQ as a young buck back in the day. I had a warrant officer and he's like, what is one of the main motivators for most people? And we're like, I don't know, money, fame, whatever. He's like, recognition. He's like, always recognize your troops when they do a good job. You're not going to be able to give them a medal every time, but for shit's sakes, give them a good write-up. Make something up. Bring them for a beer. Literally do anything, but make sure other people know that you recognize good behavior and that they're being rewarded for it, because it builds a better esprit de corps and better morale. And I was like, hell, why don't we do that? Why don't we do more of that? And so to wrap it all up, I think we're on the right path here, folks. I think there is going to be a lot more in terms of morale building activities. I'm being very vague here, but I think we're going to see some changes here in Canada, positive ones. I can't wait. And I think we're going to see just an overall change of attitude from the last few years that are going to allow us to be healthier, fitter, and more engaged and more appreciated, especially as a veteran community. So that's all reason to stay positive, in my opinion. So thanks again for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Make sure to share, like, subscribe, do all the things you got to do to keep veteran content like this and health and fitness content like this coursing through the algorithms. So that's it for me. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Have a good weekend. See you next week. Train hard, fight easy. Peace.